Hey everyone, this is me, Matishifu. I would like to apologize for not uploading anything in over a month and a half. Some stuff has happened lately and it's taken a toll on my anxiety and I've felt very stressed out, but I'm doing a little bit better now. This is also why this video has been a little delayed because I originally planned to release this at the end of October. But anyways, I usually don't do these kinds of videos often, especially when it comes to topics like this one. But for a while now, I've been self-reflecting and had the idea about making a video on talking about my old content, what happened to some of it, and why I don't really make or associate with it much anymore. Might as well cut straight to the chase and begin. So of course a lot of you know I have been very well known for making Sparta remixes on this channel and my past channels as well. I started making Sparta remixes in late 2015 going into early 2016, so about 6 to 7 years now. I eventually stopped making them and took a break after releasing Sparta Matt and I went to Creation Remix number 2 back in July 2019. Yeah, if any of you thought I was done with making remixes for good, that's not true. That was very poor wording back in the day. I eventually came back to making them back in late April 2020 on another channel, and then I later moved them onto this channel, and then I started making them for good in October 2021. So it's been a whole year since I stopped doing them as a whole, but I have done in a couple of SR related references in my newer content, so it isn't 100% gone in a way. I still make references to them here and there. I built up a reputation and was very well known for making these, almost to the point where a few people thought I was one of those big remixers, even though I don't really classify as that. The reason why I stopped making Sparta remixes for good was because I didn't really enjoy making them as much as I did before, and I wanted to try to shift my content to something completely different and new. And second reason being the community being a little meh here and there, like not really the greatest. Now, I don't hold any grudges against the community or anyone in particular. That was all in the past. Truth be told, I'm actually really glad that I was part of this community, and I'm so glad that a lot of the people there helped me. Like, you have no idea how much I appreciate it. It really means so much to me. But there were a couple of times where the community wasn't the best per se, let alone myself, because, you know, I wasn't the greatest either. I didn't really act on my best behavior, and you know, nobody is perfect. I hope this take isn't a bit too controversial, and I hope it doesn't make me look self-centered or selfish, but most of the time I am more comfortable with working with smaller groups or doing my own thing by myself when it comes to making content like this. That's kind of why I don't really use common sources that everyone else uses, like SpongeBob or object shows, and this is the same for my regular YT PMVs and any other content in general. I don't really like to interact with very big communities all the time because it can be a little too much for me, and I don't really like following what everyone else is doing. I kind of like just want to do my own thing and be myself or work with other friends. That's why I feel more comfortable working with close friends or by myself, and which is also why I chose to step down from this community and multiple parts of it. I don't really enjoy making these anymore, and I don't really like being with very big crowds. I hope you all understand where I'm coming from, as I'm not trying to act rude or anything. As I grow older, I outgrow things rather quickly too. I don't really think there's a lot to go over for this small part here, but for those unaware, I also used to be very well known for making a lot of custom sources, and I mean quite a lot. So much so that I had to split them into series or something, like multiple seasons or stuff like that, like an era of them or something kind of like that. I don't really make these types of genre of videos anymore because the whole idea of custom sources eventually became very redundant and repetitive over the years. Not to mention, but some of my sources have gotten very popular to the point where people would just straight up copy me what I've said in the past. Like when I said this is a blank. I don't really have a problem with it anymore, but this is just to keep note of and to prove that custom sources aren't really the greatest and aren't really used much, and I can definitely see why. Alright, so this has been a person that I haven't really spoken about in a while, and I bet a lot of you still wonder what happened to this stuff that I made related to him. If you've been with me since this channel's creation, or as early 2017 during the late TRGS days, I bet a lot of you know who I'm talking about. But for those who don't know, Vince Paws, also known as these names, is an obscure animator from Indonesia who was well known for their Happy Tree Friends fan animations and furry animations. And thanks to yours truly, he got a bit bit of recognition in the Sparta Remix and YTP&V community for source material, along with the regular YTP&V community for some reason. I used to be friends with the dude and we used to talk a lot on Facebook since early 2018. As time went by, he made me feel very uncomfortable and I eventually cut contact with him in early 2021. I'm not going to explain exactly what he did, but really all I'm going to say is that he's been pretty off-putting behind closed doors. This is something that I don't really like talking about, so I'm just going to end this topic here and move on to the next one. Now, this has been something I've been really wanting to talk about for a while now when I was having some discussions about it with close friends privately. If anyone hasn't gotten the idea already, I used to be in a very long and stupid salt phase where I would act all cutesy ooh kind of way and always be happy-go-lucky. Let's just say I was blissfully oblivious for a while. During this phase, I used to make animation memes, which is basically a trend about characters dancing to music or something. During the time where I started out making animal characters throughout 2018, during the end of that year, I made a series under the name RMTV Stories, later changing it to Kato Schmiggelis because I thought that would sound better, even though it kind of wasn't, because it was hard for some people to pronounce. So I'm just gonna call it Kato for the rest of this. I eventually canceled the series because I didn't really like how it turned out and it wasn't a really great way to explain the lore of my characters. That's literally what I was trying to do. I wanted to give my characters an actual story or lore, but the way I did it wasn't a good way to start out. I wasn't a good scriptwriter at the time. I wasn't the best at art and animating because I was still breaking out of my joke art phase, and I would usually come up with something off the top of my head. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's actually a great way to start getting the idea of explaining your character's story, but I didn't really like how the way I used to escalate it. Quite surprised the series still gained a bit of traction and people liked it anyway at the time, but at the end of the day, it's just another something that I made as a dumb teen that I'm no longer proud of anymore. I also remember making vent arts as a way to cope, but I don't do those anymore either because not only are they stupid, they aren't a good coping mechanism either. Another reason why I canceled Kato because my close friends used to make fun of it and we would like turn it into an in-joke, and you know, I can't really say I blame them. It's kind of something that I deserve after all because of how bad it is and how bad my salt face is as well. Now, please keep in mind that they don't act like this anymore, and I'm not going to be naming who started the in-jokes of this. It's a little personal towards me and my friend group, which I'll explain about in a bit. I eventually broke out of my salt face somewhere in mid to late 2021, and I became more aware and self-cautious of things. I don't think there's much to say about this either, but throughout my early days when I used to have a lot of free time, especially in the summer and other school breaks, I used to host live streams with Google Hangouts on air, later moving to StreamYard and sometimes OBS. The reason why I stopped doing these was because most of my live streams consist of me and my friends going crazy and acting immature in general. Not to mention, but I also remember when some of my streams used to get rated and such. The last live stream I ever did was somewhere in early 2021, if I remember correctly. I didn't really know how to do a proper live stream and stuff like that, and now I'm a little scared to do another one. I honestly don't know when I'll be returning to do them again, but really all I can say is that I don't feel very comfortable doing them right now, let alone participating in them too. This is another name that I haven't really mentioned publicly in a long time either. Again, for those unaware, this person by the name of Stanjay used to be very infamous for copying other people off in the Sparta Remix community. Mostly me, unfortunately. This has been going on for the past couple of years since early 2017 until around mid-2020 was when he stopped. I used to hold a very strong grudge against him since he loved to rip me off the most, but as time went by, I stopped hating on him and nowadays I don't really care about him too much, but I still tend to joke around about him here and there, but that's really much it. That's pretty much it. Stanjay's previous plagiarizing ways got so annoying that even more people, including my friends, were informed about it too. We used to spam his videos with very harsh criticism and attempts to tell him off. Even one of my friends hacked his previous channels a couple times. That's how bad it really was during those days. Nowadays, Stanjay doesn't really copy me anymore, and he's kind of doing his own thing now, even improving in his content very slowly, but still gives off the local editor or generic remixer ways. I even contributed to some of his stuff I ironically like the Object Code reboot from mid-2020 that never got anywhere after the original series was cancelled for some reason. Yeah, he's just very hard to understand and still is today. Like, it's kind of weird and he kind of gives off the vibe of like he's from a completely different planet maybe. Throughout the second half of 2019, I haven't been feeling the greatest. I've been having some second thoughts about returning the remixes, but at the same time, I kind of didn't want to. This was also around a time where I was a bit of an edgy phase in a way, and I would eventually have thoughts of suicide. Keep in mind, this was also during my soft phase too. That's how bad it really was. Going into 2020 and throughout that year didn't really make things any better. I mean, we can all agree that 2020 was definitely the worst year, both personally and globally. One of the major reasons was quarantine, and during quarantine my mind was definitely spiraling. I'm not going to explain exactly what happened during that year, but to quickly summarize, I've been through quite a lot of private drama with my close friends, some of which almost went public. Some of the dramas eventually led to us cutting contact with each other multiple times. We documented all the private drama that we caught and encountered all up until around the middle of 2021. During this time, we also used to make jokes that spy and offended each other, but nowadays we try our best to take these jokes in a more lighthearted manner. Again, we don't act like this anymore, and we've completely changed our ways. Sure, there have been a couple of struggles and squinks that happened this year, but they weren't nearly as bad as how they were 2 to 3 years ago. We all make mistakes, and we learn from them. Nobody's perfect. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to get off my chest. Basically me telling the truth about my past and coming clean about a few things like my soft phase. If anyone has any questions about this, feel free to comment. I will try to clarify more things that I missed. I also clarified a couple more things in a pinned comment. The morals of this is that we're all human, we all make mistakes and learn from them. And while we aren't proud of how we acted in the past, we can't really erase it because it still remains a part of us in our history. It's always best to move forward. Anyways, that's pretty much it. See you.